welcome. You're watching Medically Speaking, and I'm Meenakshi Upreti. Now, this is a show where we take complex medical issues, decode, deconstruct for the benefit of our viewers. Today, we all know the number of COVID cases are rising exponentially. India is seeing up to 90,000 cases. It is a many-fold rise as far as COVID cases is concerned. The situation is alarming. But we all keep saying that it's a silver lining as the cases are mild. But by saying that the cases are mild, are we becoming complacent? And in case our hospital systems get overwhelmed, are we prepared for that? Or can we just depend on the mildness of the variant? Also in the show, we will be discussing the protocols for treatment of COVID, because there is a lot of confusion regarding it. To discuss all of this and more, I have Professor Anil Arora. He's the HOD Gastro Department from the Gangaram Hospital. Dr. Dhiren Gupta is also with us. He is one of the most renowned pediatricians of our country. He's from the Sir Gangaram Hospital. We'll also be joined with Professor Mohsin Wali. He is a senior cardiologist, Padma Shri, very known face as far as medical circles are concerned. We also have Dr. Sachin Bajraj. He's the head of the Ujjwala Sinus Group. Thank you all for joining us. I'm going to start with you, Professor Arora. So as far as the protocol for treatment is concerned, now we know that there are 3 drugs basically which experts say are potent when it comes to tackling with Omicron. I'm going to first of all talk about Molnupiravir, because that's a drug which is already being manufactured in India and could have been available very soon. But now we have a very interesting statement from ICMR saying that the drug has many side effects and it's not been included in India's treatment protocol. What really does it mean for the layman? Help us understand, sir, first of all.
Thank you, Meenakshi, for having us on your show. First of all, let me reiterate, there is no specific one-to-one drug which is meant specifically to treat COVID-19 infection, that too in particular the Omicron variant. We should be very clear about it. The drugs which we are using are general antiviral drugs. They have been in use, they have been in work for so many other diseases also. Moreover, US FDA has not approved the utility of Molnupiravir for control of COVID-19 infection. They have only authorized it in a subgroup of the patient as an emergency use. Emergency use authorization means you still do not have enough data. As a last ditch effort, you can try it with a complete recording of the data to know before it is being released across the board to the general public. So this is a drug we should know which tries to interfere with the virus multiplication. It is a drug which is a RNA polymerase inhibitor, and it makes attempt when the virus is multiplying. See, the virus multiplies by putting its different acts together. Different amino acids and their chains, they try to conjoin together in a dignified manner to give a proper shape. What Molnupiravir is doing is interfering in that chain. So inadvertently, it ends up producing alteration in the genetic component of the virus, so that the virus is not able to produce a dignified component which will produce an intact virus. Taking that into consideration, it's possible that same effect may be occurring in the different cells. After all, how does the protein form from an RNA? It is by translation. And when you are trying to interfere, there is always a risk that it is going to lead to mutagenicity and teratogenicity. That means it can alter the changes within the cells, leading to carcinogenicity, or it may be able to pass on to the germline cells. So these are the 2 major concerns. The argument which has been put forward by Merck Pharmaceutical is that in the recommended doses of 800 milligram twice a day, you will have enough concentration to cull the virus in that cell completely. But I think all of us would agree, all the panelists would agree, including you, that whenever you take a drug, if you feel better, half of us may not be able to continue the full course of the drugs.
Yes.
And with half the drug going into somebody's body, is doing a half-hearted job, you always have a potential to give more disrepute to the drug than the drug for which it has been already authorized. That is the reason we have a clear recommendation only in the subgroup of the patient under the supervision of a qualified physician. When there is a deficiency of oxygen with comorbidities, should you attempt to use it as an antiviral drug, not across the board.
Right. But, so would you not say there is a lot of confusion? And I would like to ask this question from Dr. Dhiren Gupta. So as far as states are concerned, it looks like that everyone has different protocols as well. As far as Bengal is concerned, they say we are not going to include monoclonal antibody. Earlier also, there are a lot of skepticism amongst the public also, because in the second wave, we had the plasma therapy, we had Faviflu, many other drugs which have now been rejected. Where do we stand as far as the treatment protocol for Omicron is concerned, sir?
Unfortunate part of India is that not only general public, even doctor learn from social media and TV interviews what has to be given. It has to be from the IMA. It has to be from some authority, from the doctors, that these are the management in India, in Indian population. These are the studies. Based on that, we are recommending these drugs. We take all those guidelines from NIH, from American guidelines, from CDC, and we always feel that they are more authenticated than our own Indian guidelines, because we feel that in the Indian guideline, not only science, when we make the policy, other than science, lot of factors get accumulated, right? Resources and these type of statements comes in media. That is very unfortunate. When we talk, suppose you want, I should prescribe you drug. It is my responsibility. What are side effects? Whether you actually need it or not. And it is going to be my responsibility about that drug, that I should tell you that this drug is not indicated, this drug is indicated, right? So you should not go to the social media to check it again that, okay, whether the doctor is prescribing. So this is an unfortunate part. Now, because this virus was changing for past 2 years, and the drugs were not, we were not ready to, we didn't had ready-made drugs against this virus, so that hit and trials came into place. So that is okay with the pandemic. Everybody was desperate. Somebody was using remdesivir very early. Somebody was not using remdesivir, and there were a lot of confusion, and WHO was party to it. WHO also created a lot of confusion, and people lost trust in the WHO because they felt that this is just working for the China. This type of sentiment not only came in mind general public, but also among doctors. Now, having said that, I agree with the previous speaker. There are 2-3 drugs. One is antiviral. Second is antibodies, which prevent any virus to invade into the cells. And whatever is available in India, only one drug and only one antiviral in the present circumstances, that is Molnupiravir, that is going to be little bit effective. When we talk about little bit effective, means it is going to prevent 30% hospitalization, right? So like in influenza, if I take an example of influenza. Influenza, we know that drug is available, like oseltamivir, but in thousands of the patients of influenza, we just prescribe in one of the patient, right? And even if the efficacy is better than this drug, but still we don't prescribe, because these viruses will go automatically. They are not indicated. The basic indication is only one. In a given circumstances where disease can have fatal or serious effect on the patient, only then this drug has to be prescribed in high-risk situation. That we need to understand.
You've succinctly said that as far as a doctor is concerned, you obviously weigh the pro and cons. And what happens is when, you have, of course, statements like these coming out where we are told that it can have genetic defects, the drug can be extremely harmful. It does sow some sort of suspicion in the mind of the people as well. So that's a fair point, sir. But, Dr. Wali, let me ask you one question, then I'll go to Dr. Bajraj. Dr. Wali, I think Dr. Gupta very rightly said that out of the 3 big drugs, you only have one drug which is available. When we speak of Paxlovid or when we speak of Sotrovimab, these drugs are not available in India. Where does it really lead or leave us when it comes to a fight against COVID? And even though, of course, you have Merck, which is of course the Molnupiravir has started being manufactured in India. 30 manufacturers have been given the license. The other 2 drugs very unlikely to come till Omicron waves just comes and even goes. Where do we stand really when it comes to availability of these steroids and our fight against Omicron?
Yes, Meenakshi, thank you for this lively discussion on Molnupiravir and drugs for this rare disease, which we hardly know about. It is very common statement, and this holds true, and this will always hold true. There is an ill associated with every pill, but there is no pill for every ill. Our system is so much full of side effects, and this is one reason people have disliked allopathy. Most of the connoisseurs of Ayurveda and homeopathy, they justify by saying this, that allopathic drugs have side effects. I agree with this statement, but there is no harm in using a drug which is beneficial. But beneficial is a big word which is proven over decades, over time. I will give you one example. Thalidomide. When we were students, there used to come a short note in the exam of pharmacy and medicine, thalidomide disaster. Thalidomide was a very common drug used for day-to-day, for general pain relief and general symptomatic relief, especially by ladies. And then we had very serious side effect of thalidomide. Studied fused arms or phocomelia, or arms were absent. Children were born without upper limbs. Then now this is one of the major drugs used to treat a condition called multiple myeloma, and a few other conditions this is being used. So this keeps changing. When we started discussing coronavirus, there was a mix of politics, medicine, and money. Mind you, I am very frank in giving these statements. We are being dictated by Western pharmacological giants and the Western pharmacological industry. And all this, what is happening, you ban plasma therapy, you bring double antibody. You do this, you do this. Instructions are coming from there. The reason for countries like India is that our medical research needs to be strengthened. I don't say it is weak, but it needs to be further augmented and strengthened. And we used to have our own norms, our own population studies, because the studies abroad widely show that the things which are applicable on black race is not true for the white race. We are using the doses prescribed by most of the foreign books, which they prescribe according to their height, which is more than us, their weight, which is always more than us, and their other economic, social, and demographic conditions. Mind you, some of the drugs which, let me just complete this sentence. Okay. Some of the drugs which we are using cause overdosage in India. So we have to be very careful. We get fascinated very soon when a new thing comes and start using it. Everybody, even quacks, start writing it. I have seen several prescriptions of Molnupiravir. I don't testify.
Okay, so one needs to be very, very careful, of course, when prescribing these steroids. But, Dr. Bajaj, let's talk about perhaps where do you stand as far as the antibody cocktail is concerned? I have two doctors from the Gangaram Hospital, and that's a hospital which has been experimenting.
Wait, I'm also from Gangaram.
Yeah, right. So I actually almost all the panel from the same hospital, and you all have been experimental with the antibody cocktail. But where do you stand on the same, sir? Because as far as Bengal is concerned, they have discontinued it, and that's why perhaps the confusion.
Yeah, Meenakshi, I agree on a lot of points with Dr. Wali that pharma interests drive a lot of decision making, unfortunately, in the medical community. Molnupiravir, as you know, I don't know if you know the root of the word. It is from Mjolnir, which is Thor's hammer. So that drug was supposed to be so powerful, like a hammer on viral RNA replication, that Emory University discovered this drug in 2014, way back, as part of their DRIVE initiative, and then very sensibly, I think, abandoned that drug because of so many side effects. And then Ridgeback Pharma bought that drug for development, and then Merck came in, and then of course COVID is the recourse for each and every drug, where no drug, I mean, the drug that is not used anywhere, they try to fit it into COVID. And this is how Molnupiravir was approved. And mind you, it was approved very narrowly by WHO for emergency use authorization in very, very specific conditions. So the thing is that we don't specify those conditions as well, whether it be for antibody cocktail or whether it be for Molnupiravir. So Molnupiravir, mind you, has not had any study at all in vaccinated individuals. So if you are vaccinated, if you have Omicron, then there is no role either for the antibody cocktail or Molnupiravir. So for the antibody cocktail, Roche very clearly says that if you have already got antibodies, that means if you've been infected earlier or you've been vaccinated, there is no role for the drug. And for Omicron especially, there is no role at all. It is absolutely not indicated. So if you are having these drugs, and we are hearing horror stories from Mumbai, especially, people are going in and getting admitted into ICUs and asking for antibody cocktail, saying, please give us an antibody cocktail. This is what we want, because this is the latest craze to do now, because this is the treatment we want. So all these medicines, please, through your channel, I'm appealing to let doctors decide what to do. I mean, it's not for IAS officers or for patients or for the social media to decide. I am getting so many WhatsApp messages saying, should we stock up on Molnupiravir, because we've heard it's a very good drug and we want to stock it for all our employees. So can you get them arranged for us? It is. I mean, in every way we get all these idiotic kinds of crazes that sometimes you're stocking remdesivir, sometimes you're stocking up tocilizumab. Now this time we're stocking up more, and all these drugs in the end, of course, come to naught, right? We've seen that. So it is a very fluid situation, very experimental. Let the doctors decide what is good, I say. And let's not go overboard trying to use these medicines, which are more harmful than useful, is what my personal opinion is.
Well, absolutely, self-medication not an option. This is also just for information, education, but end of the day, I think that's a point which almost all doctors across the panel are making, that do not go via Google information, trust your doctors. But I think, as Dr. Bajaj said, Professor Arora, and I'll just take a quick comment from all of you, because it was rather short debate and I don't have much time and as extensively would have liked to discuss the issue. I think there is a very important point which we are missing. The fact that many of us say that Omicron is mild, and I agree with Dr. Bajaj that maybe there is no need for hospitalization. Of course, there's a panic. People are getting hospitalized. But do you think that by calling the cases mild again and again, we are somehow missing the bus and we are becoming complacent, Dr. Arora?
Yeah, Meenakshi, so far as mildness is concerned, it is a relative term. When you talk of a national figures, then the criteria for saying it is a mild, moderate or severe disease is how many of your COVID beds are occupied, for the need for oxygenation, for external ventilatory support and ventilator. That is a criteria which is now being used by Mumbai. It is a different toolkit to use it as a parameter. But if you go by an individual, every single viral infection can be fatal, depending upon your immune status, your age, your concomitant morbidities, and the way you respond to the virus. Every single case may be fatal. So it may be a silver lining for the nationalistic policies for all across the world, for your filling up of the COVID data. For an individual patient, you can never let your guard lower down. You have to keep up your vigil. That is the reason everybody who is infected should be tested and isolated.
People need to be, more cautious and vigilant all the time. But Dr. Gupta, aren't the hospitals getting overwhelmed already? Because there are, of course, a lot of healthcare workers who are getting admitted, who are testing positive, because the infection rate is very, very high, isn't it?
Yeah. Problem with this infection is that it spreads very fast, and if the delta affects one, it affects maybe around 20, 50. So the number is so huge. Say, for an example, we take in South Africa example, that there was mild. But Dr. Anil Arora said is correct. If the number of people in one colony is equal to the number of people in one city in America, in UK and elsewhere. So what is going to happen? Today a patient, a 13-year-old, presented with low blood pressure on day one, and she came COVID positive, and it was COVID that was leading to this low blood pressure. I mean to say, any given patient it's a relative term, mild. This patient came directly into ICU and we required to admit this patient. So when numbers are going to be huge, especially for Indian population, I don't think that any medical system is ready, will be ready, even if we export our medical system to the US and take their medical system in India, that will also fail given the number of population. Now, if you look at the previous data, it is 4% hospitalization in South Africa. And if same wave, which we are viewing, if same wave affects and in lakhs people start coming, then 4% is going to be very huge number. And we know our medical system, we haven't invested in our medical system for 70 years. We all know that it is going to overwhelm our system very soon. And probably we may witness tsunami of the patients in next 2 to 3 weeks.
And if we witness tsunami of patients, then what happens, Dr. Valli? Because I think if you go by even a simplest calculation, we have 90,000 to maybe touching 1 lakh cases by tomorrow, unfortunately. 4% of that would be 40,000. How does the medical system take that? Would you say that this is time not to be complacent by calling the cases mild?
Milder than Delta would have been the perfect notion since the beginning. We had made a mistake by calling it just mild. We have to punctuate it, milder than Delta. Because we had such a bad experience with Delta, it looked very mild. If a runner who is used to 10,000 kilometer marathon runs 100 meters, he would say it's a mild race. It's like that. No, the point is the type of proliferation of cases, the type of multiplication of cases is at a very alarming rate. Any system in the world would collapse by then. Our country is lucky, I'm saying repeatedly, starting from BCG vaccination, playing in the mud, having suffered from a very severe Delta wave, acquiring immunity, and to some extent by vaccination.
Yeah,
quite a bit extent.
Dr. Bajaj, would you also share the optimistic point of view, like Dr. Valli, as we are closing the show, considering, of course, zero positivity does show, of course, very positive, indications. And as far as vaccination rates are concerned, at least in metropolitans, the numbers are pretty robust when we speak simply of metropolitans, not, of course, the entire country.
No, Meenakshi, I think you are right in the fact that we should not wave it off as a mild disease, because it's not just the short-term effects that we are looking at. We also have to be cognizant of the long-term effects of COVID that we are coming across. We are coming across hundreds of thousands of patients with long COVID. I have many patients who were very active earlier and now can't even go to the toilet because they have inappropriate sinus tachycardia. Their heart rate goes up to 160 on mild activity only. And we have lots of patients coming in with brain fogging. We've heard of so many young heart attacks, both in our close circle as well as of celebrities. So this virus has been known to be found in various organs, not just the lungs, in the brain, in the heart, 6 months after the infection as well. So we can't just wave it off as a very mild common cold kind of infection. It is a serious disease and we have to be cognizant of that fact, and we should make all efforts to keep ourselves protected from it.
Well, keep your guards up. Ensure that you mask up. Mask, of course, is a vaccine which you have in your pocket. That's a message, of course, which medical experts have reiterated through the last wave, and it continues in this wave as well. Omicron may be mild when we look at larger numbers, but when it comes to one person, of course, we don't know how it affects you personally. We tried to, of course, touch upon the medication and the protocol as well, but I guess it's best we as common man leave that to the medical professionals, to the doctors. And as I conclude, of course, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us here on NewsX.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Meenakshi. Okay.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.